Hey guys, welcome back to another video for dkscgi.net. In this video we're going to continue off where we left off in the previous one, where we started off explaining how the loft works. In this video I would like to take what we learned in the previous video and build up on it. So as you can see right now in my scene, I basically have three lines. One is, as you can see, it's basically a simple line with four vertices, and the two in the middle have been made to be first a smooth, so we can get the curvature here, and then they've been transformed into a Bezier corner, so we can have a better control over how the line flows. Now, what's the idea of this line? Well, the idea is to show how loft actually works when we have a couple of different splines that are supposed to be defining the forms. Like in the previous video we saw how it worked, but now we're gonna I'm gonna show you how this can work in the way that we're gonna select one of these lines and make a road out of it. For example, like I'm gonna select the original line. Now I'm gonna press the loft in the compound objects, and in here I'm going to click the get shape button. With this I can select now the first of these lines. Now with this I'm getting the rudimentary form of a road, where we have the curbs, we have the low road, and I have the sidewalk. So if I take a better look at how this line actually looks, it's basically just a line that has a couple of vertices. A few of them are actually extruded up, and the one is going down, which is supposed to be this part over here. Now, as we can see, there is another line underneath it, but all right, let's do it this way. I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to show you exactly what I've done. So first I'm going to select the line, then I'm going to convert it into an editable spline before doing anything to it. And now I'm going to hold down shift and shift drag it down right here, and I want to make it a copy, not an instance, because I want to modify this, so this is going to be the low point of the road. So I'm going to use the copy. There we go. Now, as we said, this is supposed to be the lower part, or the transition. So I'm going to have to go into vertices, or just simply click 1 on your keyboard, and now I'm going to select these two, the first two vertices, and lower them down a bit, about yay high. Now select these two as well, select them down a bit, and now I'm gonna select both of these and I'm gonna make them corner, just because I want to have a straight line over here, and I'm gonna try and make this a line. Corner. I don't want to have any wobbly parts over here. There we go. I won't change anything else. I'm just going to leave it like this. Alright, since we made that, let's see how we can use these two lines and define where the road is supposed to have those indentions. First thing that I would like to point out is, whenever you're using loft, you want to make sure that you have the normals facing straight. What does it mean? Well, for example, like now we can see it quite good, but I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change the color to blue or something more visible. And on top of it, like on top of the loft, I'm gonna put an edit poly, just so I can select the polygons. And if I select them, you can see that the color looks rather washed out, opposed to the bottom, where we have quite vivid color, white vivid red. The reason why this one looks washed out is simply because the normals of this road are just flipped. So there are two ways to fixing that. Actually, there are multiple ways. If you want to go into edit poly, and we can just click the flip here and flip it, but let's see how we can do that in Loft without having to use the edit poly. we have the flip normals button over here. Like if we click it and now put an edit poly, we can see that the normals have been flipped before we even have to put in the edit poly. And there's another way that we can flip the normals. For example, if I choose the original line from which the road was made and go into vertices, I'm gonna see that this one, like this vertex at the start, is white. That means that is the number one vertex. Like we showed previously, if we click the show number vertex, it's gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on up to 13. So in order to flip the normals, we're gonna have to change the way that Max is counting the number of the vertices. The way we do that is simply select the 13th vertex, go down and your endpoint auto welding, just go down until you find a button that says make first. You click it, everything changes. Like you see, now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and going on up to 13 on the other side. And just by switching this, if we go back to the loft, we can see that right now it's flipped again. But the reason for this is because we have turned off flipped here. And there we go. It's flipped as well. So let's continue on, and I'm gonna move the original one back to 1 because it's gonna correlate with the one that we copied off of it. All right, back to making the road. We in the previous video we showed that we can move this little X over here. As you can see, this one. If we choose the path, we can see that the X is moving, and with the moving of the X, we can just get a shape at that position. So I'm gonna select the first one, like the original one, once, then I'm gonna move it just a tiny little bit. Now select the second one or the lower one, then move it a bit more. Again, choose the lower one, move it a bit up, choose the higher one. That means that in this place, as we can see, we just got a place where the side track is getting lower. So it's going from being high to being low, and then going back from being low to being high, which is ideal if you want to make a place where a zebra crossing, for example. Now, where we are in the loft, we can select each of these shapes and we can move them around. Like by moving this, as I can see, I'm specifying where exactly that indentation is going to be. For example, if I choose 4 of them and simply hold down Shift and click and drag, I can put a different path over here, and we have a copy or instance. I'm going to use an instance. I'll tell you why in a second. Here I'm going to put one over there, hold down Shift, put the additional one over here, also in instance, and just put one more over here for good measure. So, there we go, another instance. Okay. So what I've done is I've made my road with places where I can just simply put down zebra crossings. Now the thing is, I think I have way too many lines over here, so I can reduce the number of path steps to lower the number, because if I'm right, this is supposed to be like a rather high poly. Actually, it's with 3.6 thousand polygons, and I'm not losing too much of a quality by reducing the number of path steps, but I don't want to reduce it way too much, because if I reduce it below 2, I'm starting to get some breakage on the geometry. There we go. So something like 5 would be ideal, at least for this example. All right, Let's continue on and see why Loft is such a great tool, because it really doesn't stop at just singling out lines and with the help of those lines to define a form. For example, if we want to put on a texture on this road, we would have to go and do an unwrap UVW modifier. You can find it in the list by going U and unwrap UVW, and right away you can see that the edges are green line, which means this entire road has a pretty good unwrap, and if we flatten it out we can put a texture on it. But before we do that, I want to show you something else. Inside Loft there is a little option inside the surface parameters that it says mapping, and underneath there is a place that you can click that says apply mapping. If you click this button, you're basically telling Max that you want to have mapping applied to this entire geometry. What this means is quite simple. If, for example, I'm gonna use just a regular material, actually I'm using V-Ray, so alright, I'm gonna go down with standard materials just in case some of you guys don't use V-Ray. So I have just a normal, there we go, material, and in the diffuse or the color for the material, I'm going to choose a checker map. The checker map is usually used if you want to see how your geometry has been mapped, or you can just use a custom checker map. But for this example, I'm just going to use the standard checker map. Now, in here, I can reduce or not there. For the V, I can increase this value to 10. That means it's going to multiply in the V axis. All right, we have 15. If any of you are actually don't know why these are called U and V, it's, or as you can see here, UV, UV, or WU. This is basically just like when you're moving in 3D space. Like, for example, if you're moving around, as you can see, you have the X, the Y, and the Z axis, while when you're using textures, those X, Y, and Z are substituted with U, V, and W. So that's why it's basically like you're moving on the Y axis. So what I actually did here is take this entire texture and multiply it on one single axis. And from what I can see, the majority of these squares are quite uniform, except for these few over here. Like on the bends, you get a bit of a squish on one side and a bit of a stretch on the outside. But for this example, that shouldn't be too much of a problem because it's not going to be too much visible. But there are cases where you're going to have to work around this with a UV unwrap modifier. But let's leave that for another video. What I want to show you right here is the reason why I'm saying this is a very good option that basically Loft has with the apply mapping, is that I can take a multi-sub object, like I have pre-made multi-sub object. So basically go multi-sub object, then set number and 3. I've made it 3 basically because in here I have 3 elements. I have the road, which is the main element, I have the curbs, and I have the sidewalk. So how do I apply this? Well, if I just click on the material and just drag it down to the road, I can see right away I have pretty good mapping on the entire road. And just so you guys are clear, the road is basically just a texture, as you can see right here. It's just a texture of a road, which I made it tileable on the X or the V scale. So when I'm multiplying it in the V, it doesn't have that seam. So as we can see, the entire road looks well, but how did this happen? I mean, how does the Loft know where to put each of those materials? Well, it's quite easy. Actually, it all boils down to the original lines. For example, if I go back to the line, and now I select the segment, and this line here, like this one, this is the line that defines where the road goes. So I have to select the line and then go down to the place where it says material and set ID. So I've set this, go back, and in my multi-sub material I have 3 IDs. So the first one correlates with the road material. So I'm going to select this one, like the central line, and go set ID 1 and click enter. Now the number 2 ID for the materials correlates with the curves. So I'm going to select these lines, hold down control, now select these few lines over here, go set ID number 2, enter. And the third ID correlates with the sidewalk, so select that one, set ID 3, enter. That way I've defined all of these lines to a separate ID for materials. And seeing as how this lower line was made from this one, I think this is going to be the same. As we can see right here, set ID 1, set ID 2, set ID 3. So these are preset because I made a copy out of this one. So as we can see right now, we don't have any issues as the geometry is flowing quite well. The textures have been added, but here is a little issue we have right here. For some reason, this straight line that seamlessly goes around the entire road, when it comes to this side where we have the indentions in the curves, it kind of breaks for a bit. Not too much, but it breaks. What is the problem? Well, if you notice, you're going to see that that breakage in the line happens exactly on the place where we have that indentation. So the way we fix this is by selecting the second line. So as we previously did, we selected a few of these vertices and we scaled them down, actually moved them down. With that, by moving that, we actually made this entire line shorter. So starting from the start and to the end, this second line is a tad bit shorter than the top one. So that problem is visible right here. So in order to fix this, we simply have to take either the starting point of it and just move it a bit. There we go. Well, actually, I want to take these two lines and just put them closer here so I can see what I'm actually doing. There we go. I'm going to take the first line and just by moving it on the X, I'm going to make it like this. And now I can see that that line is moving straight. So we don't have any problems anymore. But we are presented with a different problem. Now this line is a bit longer. And seeing as how this is the sidewalk, I'm probably going to have some kind of shops or, well, basically anything could be here. So I want to make sure that this side stays flat. So I'm going to Control Z a few times. There we go. Now this line is getting good. So instead of choosing that side and elongating it, I'm going to select this bottom vertex and just make it a tad bit shorter until we get the line to be without breakage. There we go. And on this side we got that geometry a bit shorter, but on this side I'm probably either gonna put it in a park or put it in some kind of a grass, or if nothing else I can just simply just go edit poly on top of it, but there you go, edit poly on top of it, and I'm move it down as I want it. Like for example, put it down, make it on Z, and there we go. We have the entire line flat, and there's no breakage in the textures, no breakage in the geometry, and everything is flat and good. So on top of this, now if we put on the unwrap UVW modifier and go in the UV editor, we can see that the entire road has been laid out very neatly. So if we want to change anything on the texture, we can just export this or do whatever you want to it, and then we can just simply put a texture on it and work on it. So with this, by knowing this, we can see that Loft, even though it's just a single modifier, it has a plethora of useful options that we can use in our work. So I'm gonna cut this video short here, and for the last video I'm gonna show you just another trick or two, and with that we're gonna finish up the Loft videos.